this is because a lady with the surname of Fairbairn, spelled Fairbairn, originates in Scotland and England, and the name is derived from the older Scots Fairbairn, meaning fair child. It is a nickname that likely described the child with a light complexion, beautiful features, and a gentle demeanor, according to the Ancestry.com that I looked up. And the term fair in this context refers to both physical beauty and goodness. So, I have here on my left Dael Fairbairn, and she'll stand up just now. Stand up now, so everybody can see you. What? Thank you. Okay, Dael's going to talk about preserving the past, designing the future, the old rectory's elegant evolution. Dael Fairbairn is the principal of the award-winning Erasmus Fairbairn Architects. She was entrusted with the restoration and transformation of the old rectory into a boutique hotel. Known for their meticulous attention to detail, the Fairbairn's firm specializes in creating buildings that embody the genius loci, which is special spirit of place, in every project that they undertake. The old rectory is a project presented a unique challenge, seamlessly integrated a 250-year-old structure with modern amenities and design. Fairbairn's approach was masterfully blended with elements from the different eras, combining careful restoration of the historic building with the new construction that respects the site's rich heritage. Employing noble materials and a timeless aesthetic, Erasmus Fairbairn Architects has created a space that honors the past while comfortably embracing the future. The result is this boutique hotel that not only preserves a significant piece of architectural history, but also provides guests with luxurious contemporary experience rooted in the site's unique character. Dael has been a continuation of this passion. In Johannesburg, she led the heritage arm for the MRA, which I take is the Melville Ratepayers Association. She just writes MRA, expects me to know what that is. That has significant Edwardian homes built for returning war veterans. She helped to facilitate and ensure the heritage buildings that are of value for the future and that they are preserved and properly restored. Currently, Dael is breathing new life into a barn in a village in Spain, and at the same time marveling at its extraordinary roof structure and beautifully crafted stonework. She can tell you about that too if you wanted to. Okay, so welcome everybody. I'll hand you over to Dael Fairbairn.
Are you there? Okay, great. Thank you very much, Len, for your kind words. It's a privilege and an honor. Privilege and an honor to be with you all this evening and to be back in our beloved environment of the old rectory. There is always joy and sadness when it comes to the completion of a project. I suppose it's akin to seeing your children grow up, leaving the nest, and you hope that you've equipped them well enough to stand on their own 2 feet and to weather the storms that might come at them. This is particularly true, too, when it comes to heritage structures with their complex history. This requires steps akin to medicine: anamnesis, diagnosis, therapy and controls, corresponding to searches for significant data, information, individuation of the causes for damage and decay. Sorry, I've just lost my notes. Choice of remedial measures and control of efficiency interventions. This is to achieve a cost effectiveness with minimal impact on architectural heritage, using funds in a rational way, and is usually necessary when the study repeats these steps in an iterative process. They almost need to be massaged into a new role, these buildings, and purpose in order to move into the next phase of their lives. Each intervention should, as far as possible, respect the concept, techniques, and historical value of the original and earlier states of the structure, and leaves evidence that can be recognized in the future. The process of damaged areas often reveals the next sensitive, logical way forward, and will be shown in certain areas of the restoration process. Deteriorated structures, where possible, should be repaired rather than replaced. The immersion in history, culture, craftsmanship has ignited a lifelong passion for me for integrating old and the new in architecture. The interplay of texture, forms, proportions across different eras. One finds a narrative embedded in heritage buildings, each story a reflection of the time and the people who inhabited them. We were employed as design and project architects who took over from Fairbairn architects, who were the architects charged with the approach and concept for the heritage components and approval thereof for this old rectory and the old barn next door, the old barn on this property itself. The creation of an environment that supports the heritage building, not taking away from it, through the introduction of competing or too similar structures, but creating a sensitive interplay between old and new, was how we designed the new structures and what we hoped to achieve with this development. The landscaping was designed to play an integral part in defining the genius loci, with Len, you've spoke at length about Norberg Schultz's definition of spirit of place, or in the environment, the embodiment of the environment as a whole, softly holding each of the new insertions separately but together. Some of these aspects were taken from the ICOMOS Charter of 2003 and the Charter of Venice, which are charters that are international charters referred to with regards to heritage restoration. Okay. First, next slide, thank you. The old rectory, an adjoining store back to around 1777, which is the first evidence that we had of this. During that time, there was whaling starting. It started early in the 1800s, and there was a lot of logging happening. Historically speaking, the old rectory is the most important building. Oh, this damn thing keeps running away with me, sorry. Old Rectory is, historically speaking, the most important building in Plet, one of the few substantial structures remaining in the Eastern Cape, virtually intact from the days of the Dutch East India Company, VOC, and also oldest surviving building in Plet. Sorry, just trying to find the rest of this damn thing. Although fascinating, I'm not going to go into the long explanation of all the building's detailed history. I will highlight, however, the significant dates in the history that have been integral to the design and development changes that occurred to the structures and why. I've included many of the facts in this presentation gleaned from very well-researched documents, particularly that of Patricia Starrer of 21 June 2016, as well as some of our team's own research In 1777, the first evidence of a fairly large building on a site, on a map, drawn up by an unknown cartographer, he called this building Verblijf voor het Volk, residence for the people. 12 years later, documented by C.J. Frederici's better-known map of the Plattegrond SE Campagnes post, he marked the structure as being Project tot Militare Logies, project for military accommodation. The store was labeled an ingevallen huishuis, and they were both put up around 1777. The fascinating part of both these two facts of evidence is that accommodation of the people probably referred to accommodation for staff, probably for logging-related reasons, as the store was used for the storage of these logs. But two, one has to ask oneself, why on earth for military personnel to be stationed here in 1777? Very, very odd indeed. Until you start to understand, no, sorry. Until you start to understand that Holland regarded the bay as a very important bay, but also saw in it that there could be incredible security problems. And if one understands the history surrounding this particular time, one can understand why they decided to house a whole military campaign, well, not a campaign, but have a number of military people housed in this building. In 1780, Holland declared war on Britain. Here's a map just showing you where everything is, but we're all fairly familiar. In 1781, Britain attempted to capture the Cape. In 1789, it was the French Revolution. And finally, the occupation of the Cape by the British in 1795. That was in a matter of 15 years, all of this was happening. The Dutch were nervous of hostile landings on this lonely stretch of coast, and the unrest in Europe would have added to this need to protect what was theirs. Okay. Let's move on with the next slide. Some more. Okay. This was the building that was put up in 1777, distinct with its two sections of thatched roof with a flat kind of opening in the middle. The flat opening in the middle there, thanks, Ian, was a courtyard. So there were two separate buildings, and they were joined behind by, you can see a little pyramidal shape in the middle there. So behind the courtyard was, in fact, the kitchen building. And that was what it looked like in 1777. This was the alteration. This was the result of the alteration in 1787, where the two wings of that house were joined in the middle, and the thatch was replaced by corrugated iron. It's believed that the house might have fallen empty during the first British occupation and was reoccupied in the 1900s. From here it was known as the barracks. It seemed as though from this point onwards there was very little by way of change to the building. During the stay of the Crawford Brunts from 1946 and 1981, after they had bought the house, there was one structural change made to the main structure. And we will discuss that when I discuss the changes that we made at the same time, well, after that. Mrs. Crawford Brunt sold the property to the Rangers Development Corporation, headed up by Nico Opperman, who had commissioned Fairbairn architects with the task of addressing the heritage approach, concept and approvals. Nico Opperman and his son Pierre, who was the contractor on the project, started out retaining a small share in the development. The steadily increasing section of our populace, said Patricia Storer, which is interested in conserving buildings of historic importance, such as this one, will surely take steps to ensure that the house with its fascinating history, is not lost to the nation. She stated that after this, that the building was sold to Nico Opperman, who had made his intentions to develop clear. Okay. So this slide indicates what we inherited of the old rectory, in its form that was still the same as it was renovated in 1887. We can move on. Thank you. This is the stone timber shed from next door, and that this was also renovated in 1787. Okay. This slide shows you the blue part, which was the old rectory as it stood as it was renovated in 1787. The green part is the part we added on, which is the kitchen here. And it was added on with a flat roof so as to not interfere with the rest of the building. And it was also added on in a space that was pretty much predefined. You know, we had nowhere to go except make it work. And somehow it works, and it works well. Similarly with the little barn, which was later renovated and turned into a church, and later, even later than that, became a school, we added on a flat-roofed area there too, which we'll discuss in more detail as we go along. The next slide gives you an indication of how we started to develop the site further, with the old rectory being the main building over there, and how we clustered the accommodation of the hotel in that manner, in a kind of C shape around the bush over there. And here's the little old school building, stroke barn, stroke church. If we take the slide one further, thank you. This is the renovated version of the 1777 building. It was taken back to its earliest possible form. As we heard, is one of the acceptable and preferred one of the acceptable and preferred methods that is recommended by the charters. This was just an artist's impression of the development before construction. If we can, thank you. This takes us to the south facade, our entrance of this building, and it was at the time thought that the main entrance of the building was on the east side, over there, which I will take you through that in a few minutes. But as the orientation was kind of being dictated to a degree in terms of how we placed the buildings that were going to be part of the accommodation, which were going to speak a language that would follow this but not be the same, we decided to enter in this position, which is quite logical coming from the street. Our interventions with this old building had to be sensitive, but also had to show that they came from a different era. So our front door was made of yellow wood and glass. So we took the materials from the building and contemporized the entrance, the first part of the building that you see, which says, "I'm new." And you can see it, maybe take some notice when you walk out. We can move on from that slide, thank you. This is the plan of the old rectory. And we are now sitting in the purple section, number 5. What we did with the orange section, which was the old courtyard, is to preserve the same form that we had in 1777 with the open courtyard, is we covered it over with concrete, a concrete slab, to keep the form and make it practical because we needed a reception, and to bring the remembrance of what it was before, being an open space. We put skylights down the middle, so it's a nice, bright, beautiful room that reminds you of when it used to be open. From that space, okay, sorry, can we just move that on? From that space, I'm just taking you to the east facade, and the door shown on the extreme right here is the door that was supposed to have been the entrance. One can see it on the facade of the old building that we inherited, and this is what it looks like now on the extreme left. Thank you. We can go on, move on. On the west facade of the old rectory, we have a gable end as well that speaks to, and the slide will be coming, speaks to the new buildings that surround it. What I'd like to show you here, and you can maybe see that the plaster work has a different feel to the new stuff. And that is because we had a recipe for the plaster, which was made of lime and crushed seashells. And that is what we used here to bring it back as far as we could to what it was before. The unfortunate aspect of this is that it's not as hardy as our new technology with normal plaster and normal paint. But it does give you the old feel. It brings one back to what it always was. As one moves around the old building, you can start to see the pyramidal shape of the kitchen, which is shown on the drawing on the bottom left there, and on the slide showing the entertainment space that comes off there. I will speak to the little veranda coming up. Thank you. So this is the other side. This is the northern side of the old rectory, opposite our entrance. And the original fireplace, which was in the original kitchen, has been restored exactly as it was before, except that it used to have stone lintels across its quite wide opening. It also had metal rods that used to hold pots, etc., for cooking. It is now a lovely, lovely, huge, big fireplace, and we have a small little library, come study, come little space for an intimate glass of wine in front of a log fire in winter. One can also see to the right of this picture and of the drawing, there's a little lean-to roof. This was implemented in the 1787 renovation, and we reintroduced it, even though the main building is back to 1777. So that relates to the 1787 renovation. We can move on a bit. Great, thank you. That shows you the roof at the top picture in that area there. It also shows how we started to embrace the milkwood forest that we have to the right of the building, and we sited a whole lot of built-in seating around that area, which then brings the landscaping back in to where the building. To where the building is joined into all these alternative amenities. We can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so that kind of shows how the pool, the decking area, we can't see the kitchen, and I know you can hear the kitchen a little bit from here, but you can't really see the kitchen from here. We've disguised it. I don't think anyone who's ever really even looked for it has found it from the outside. The swimming pool and the rest of the amenities have just kind of pulled the whole scheme together in this area. And from here, one can go down towards some of the accommodation and back through this old building and to the right. So here's our plan of that area again, showing you where the kitchen is over here, with delivery areas over here, and the pool and the milkwood tree, which, by the way, dates back to at least as far as 1777, we told. If we can move that on, thank you. So this is the reception area, which shows you some of the skylights that I was talking to you about, and the flat slab, which covers over what used to be that courtyard area. We can move on, I think. Thank you. This area of the entrance hall also shows some of the early clay brick construction that we protected because we wanted to expose it so that everyone could see what it looked like. And what we also did was this shows you the floor. We're sitting on beautiful original old yellow wood planks here, and where we couldn't get any, we didn't have enough to do the whole building in these planks. We put in an ochre screed, which it gives you the same kind of colouring, and also shows that this was an intervention. Okay, if we can continue. The blue area is the little fireplace area and kitchen, as it was before, and we can go on to the next one, please, Jan. That is a photograph of that room and the space that it would have taken up as a kitchen. Not huge for barracks, but while I'm here and while we're sitting in this room, if you just look up, these beams had yellow wood floor planks over the top of them, and the barracks that we spoke of earlier were up there as well as down where we're sitting. So they had makeshift staircases up, and there were a lot of people sleeping up there. And in fact, we got a lot of the yellow wood that we used in the old rectory was still very much intact up there, more so than down here. The planks down on the level we are sitting at were pretty badly damaged, a lot of them. Okay, thank you. So this was a very interesting story. When we came into this building, the plasterwork was in a state of disrepair. It was falling off, it was cracked, it was bubbling, it was really bad. And we had to take all the plaster off, all the walls, everywhere. And surprisingly found this incredible stonework underneath. I asked the contractor to take all the plasterwork off, and I came back about 2 weeks later to do a site inspection, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. There were these tiny little pyramidal shapes of sand all over the floor next to these walls. And I can't understand what's going on here. So I just watched the wall for a bit, and everyone thought I'd gone completely nuts in the middle of a site meeting. I just said, just hold on. And I watched the wall, and to my surprise and everyone else's, we started to see what was going on. There were these tiny little waterfalls, but they were little sand falls that were pouring out of the walls. So the plaster from before had been holding these walls together in terms of moisture. They were retaining the moisture in the walls. And once the plaster had been taken away, the walls started behaving in this strange fashion. So what we did was where it looked as though it was a little bit unstable, we had to add a bit of cement, because clearly there was no cement in between. It was pretty much mud that we had dried out. And we just sealed them. And that retained everything. So we sealed them with a water-based polyurethane sealant that was okay for stonework, and we have these beautiful walls that we haven't kept everywhere. They weren't in great condition everywhere. And if you walk through the whole building, you can see where we've retained them and where we haven't. We can go from here, thank you. Okay, so this is the dining area that we're now sitting in. I jumped the gun a little bit because that wasn't in my notes to start with. But this is the space that we're sitting in now with the kitchen. That was the one only intervention. We did, however, use one of the old window spaces for the door. And so that is the only intervention here, really. There was talk originally, before we got involved, that the previous developers wanted to put hotel rooms above us here too, which I'm very pleased we didn't. It would have been horrible to have been in a bedroom, I think, above a dining room. But anyway, the other thing, just with some of the spaces that we've kept open, we've only closed some of the spaces going down to the end because of privacy. For the rest, everything looks up into the thatch and onto these are original yellow wood beams. Some of them had to be repaired and augmented, but these are 99% original. Thank you. We can move on. Oh, sorry, we're one slide behind. Okay, so that we've spoken to that. Thank you. This is the bar area, which is on the other side down there. And we've used noble materials once again. In fact, it was quite strange. We couldn't get anyone, my architectural partner and I couldn't get anyone to put together a copper cladding for this bar, so we built it. We built it ourselves in Johannesburg and shipped it. And when we got here, the bar that is behind the counter, which was designed out of copper tubing, just normal plumbing copper tubing, the chap who was building that was in hospital, and so we ended up putting that together too, the two of us. So Colleen, also, you might find this interesting. The day before we were supposed to open the rectory, your daughter and I were standing on the bar counter and decided to swing on the yellow wood beams. Anyway, that's just a little aside. Thanks. Next one. This is the cloakroom at the end of the building. Align Design, who were the interior designers, were instrumental in creating this absolutely delightful space. I absolutely love it. Although it was pink flamingos that were suggested to start with, and we said we don't think so, but the flamingos have stayed, and I adore them. So go and look at them in a bit more detail. That space is great. Thanks. Okay, so now we're getting back to the barn cum stables that were converted in the bottom northeast corner. Thank you, and we can go on. Oh, okay, thank you. So this picture shows what we inherited to work with, which was pretty much nothing. But we did work with some of these old walls where we could use them and properly key in. We did. We had to use expansion joints and all kinds of weird and wonderful mechanisms that we didn't have too much movement, but we managed to resurrect the same perimeter. Can we move on? Thank you. So these are drawings. This building was also taken back to its earliest pictures that they could find, and it doesn't really look like the church that we saw that was kind of renovated in 1787. This is much earlier than that. We can take it further, thank you. So that's what the building looked like in 1777. We've changed it to a spa, and if we go back one slide, the green part that I said to you, where we had to add things, we added in a flat roof manner so that the profile of the building wasn't ever affected. You still get the same feel as you would without it imposing as a new piece. And that was for the Razul and the cloakrooms, etc., for the spa. Thanks, Ian. Okay, we can move on. Okay, so this is where we start to have the interface between old and new, and where we've designed the new buildings that kind of speak the same language as the new. The old and the new speak the same language, but they are distinctly different. We can move on, thank you. This part of the plan indicates all the accommodation on the western side and on the northern side. We're going to speak to each one of them briefly and just explain how the design came about and what they are. So if we look at the blue, that is Block A. We called it, Block B is the pink, Block C is the orange, and so we're going to start with the blue block, Block A, which are the garden villas, and move on to Block B, which is a split level, single story and double story, and the orange ones, which have interleading rooms that can be shut off as single and double interleading rooms if needed. So if we start, these are the designs of the actual rooms. Type 3 or Block A is on the extreme right with a little veranda and its own private garden. These are the buildings up here as you walk in to the left of the entrance of the rectory. Block B is single story and double story. That is, we saw the facade starting to interact of Block B, starting to interact with the western facade of the old rectory. And Block C, which is at the bottom of the garden down there, next to the spa building. Okay. These are the garden suites that were designed to invoke a memory of what the old rectory, in terms of design, invoke, as well as all the others do, in a small way. They're contemporary, but they do speak a language that is a familial language. The bedroom up at the bedrooms in this area all have open, exposed trusses, so you have the feeling of space as you do in this building, and look onto the garden. Thank you. So these are just some pictures. The bathrooms also we've kept quite open, quite contemporary, and they're all of the bathrooms look onto either a courtyard or onto space that brings in natural light. Okay. This is the entrance area into the garden suites, where you also, this gable would be speaking to those three elements that we saw earlier before. We saw two elements, the old building, the facade of Block B, and this is the facade of Block A. So those three, at that junction point, speak to one another. As one walks up the side to go into these units, you are surrounded by this beautiful, lush vegetation. Thank you. So when we go on to Block B, that's the pink. This facade is on the one side, which is the double facade, and this looks onto Block C on this section. But those walls that you're seeing on that facade are actually the shower courtyards. So each of these buildings, especially the ends, will look onto courtyards with planting, with trees in them. The other side, sorry, we can move on there. So the other side, the picture on the right-hand side, shows how these buildings look onto this milkwood forest. Well, we call it the milkwood forest. It's a mini milkwood forest with that beautiful old milkwood tree. The other facade is on the left, which we've spoken about, starting to speak the language between all three facades in that area. Thanks, we can move on. So these are the bathrooms. They're all similar, but what we've designed is we've designed bathrooms that are open, except for loos. So if you look at the planning, everything is open. We have a wall in the middle. I don't know if you can see that there. Yeah, and I might have to do it from here. Can you guys see this pointer? Okay. So those are the walls that separate the bedroom from the bathroom. And they separate the light, they separate the shower area. And the loos in this corner here are enclosed with balconies. So every room has a balcony, every room can look out, etc. So we can move on to the next one. That's another aspect of the same bathroom where you see the courtyard and the tree and the natural light coming in. Thank you. These are some of the bedrooms in the lower section looking onto the milkwood forest and are open. The blue wall on the right-hand side here is that dividing wall, that screen wall that I've just spoken about. Okay. Just some more of the bathrooms, the enclosures, the verandas. Thank you. Okay, so this is Block C. Block C also connected with a flat slab in the middle, reminiscent of the old shape of this, speaking the same kind of language, even though it's contemporary. Okay, we can move on. That's the facade of Block C. I'm sure that the vegetation was like this when we finished in 2017-18. This could have been maybe a later photograph, but I'm sure the trees have grown like crazy since then. Thank you. I haven't walked around, but I will tomorrow. This is the pathway between the Block B and Block C. They look onto these big coral trees and the milkwood. And Block C at least, that is next to the spa building, is the picture on the right that you will see from the swimming pool. Thank you. So this is a section through Block C. We have storerooms and things and laundries and staff areas underneath, which we have carefully kind of curated to not be visible, and they are on the one end of the building. This is the pathway shown on the right here, and the entrance in over here. Thanks, Ian. The picture on the left shows the pergola over the entrance. It has a little glass roof to prevent rain and so on going into that space. And that is the entrance to the service area. Thank you. Similar bedrooms, bathrooms, etc. The tops of all of these buildings look into the roof space with exposed trusses. You get the height, once again, of this. Similar height. Thank you. I think that is okay. You can, the picture on the right is interesting because you can see the dividing wall that separates the bathroom and the bedroom. Oh, I forgot about one interesting fact. Could we go back to slide, just one of the beginning slides of the main rectory, I'd just like to indicate something that was of interest. Thank you. Okay, no, next one. Thank you. Okay, just that plan, there we go. Thanks so much. I forgot to mention that during Mrs. Crawford Brunt's stay, she took one wall out. And what is significant is that this passageway here, which is on that side over there that takes you to the loos, was present over here in the dining area here as well. She took it out because she wanted the space to be bigger. And that's what we inherited, which I think was fortuitous. It stood us well. Also, and I'd like to just, if this doesn't run away with me again, if I can read you one little thing. There was one of the visitors to the old rectory, who was a South African novelist. Her name was Pauline Smith, who stayed in the rectory, not the old rectory, because it wasn't old then, in 1913. And she described the red iron roof, thick walls, and small paned casement windows, as well as the austerity of the interior. Wooden buttons fastened the windows, and none of the rooms were papered, but rather whitewashed. So that brings us back to all of these walls were plastered. That was the evidence that we found. And, you know, you glean lots of little jewels as you're investigating and find a whole lot of little pearls, and that was one of them. I think we can just go all the way to the end, kind of. Please, Ian. Thank you. Okay, so let's stop on the picture. I think that's more interesting than the acknowledgements. What I wanted to say is, what I wanted to read you, in fact, was the owner's brief comment that was written when we submitted this building for merit awards. He wrote a letter about this building, and I'd like to read that to you. Rare Earth owns a portfolio of luxury boutique coastal hotels, safari lodges, and luxury country houses. We felt that the historical building on the site, together with additional new buildings, if sensitively integrated, would form the core of a unique boutique hotel development. When we bought into the scheme, the heritage guidelines and initial concept had been prepared by Fairbairn, and we appointed Erasmus Fairbairn architects as design and project architects to translate these guidelines into a workable scheme. The old rectory now, the hotel core building, was in a state of disrepair. Vagrants were lighting fires on the original yellow wood floors, and it was inhabited by bats and feral cats. Materials were being looted from the site. The ruins in the garden, formerly both a school building and a small church, now the hotel spa, was returned to its earliest documented state. The position of honor in the scheme is occupied by an ancient milkwood tree. It is said that the tree predates the 1777 building. The architect cited built-in seating under the shade, and the new hotel rooms look onto the screen space that has been carefully underplanted with indigenous shade plants. We're privileged as the owners to have contributed to restoring and bringing back to life these important buildings. The sensitive integration of the new with the old, as well as fine planting and detailing, have achieved an environment synonymous with our product offering. We are delighted with our unique boutique hotel, the Old Rectory. And in conclusion, time and again I find myself drawn to the spirit of the past, but it's not just about preservation. It's about creating a dialogue between eras. My greatest joy comes from integrating historical elements and contemporary design, allowing buildings to honor their heritage while embracing the future. This philosophy has guided my approach to projects like the Old Rectory, where centuries of history converge with modern luxury and comfort. Thank you so much. Thank you, Len.
Dael, thank you very much. It was a great exposition of what's happening here. I want to give you something to remind you of this evening. This is for you. It's something that needs to be restored as well. And something that's very precious. And once you open it, you'll know what it is.
Thank you so much.
I want to thank you for listening to Dael. And if any questions, please ask them now. Yep, at the back there.
That was removed by corporate blood. I'm amazed that these plans showed that you had plans in the first place. The second place, if it showed that sort of detail.
Okay, so we didn't have plans. The plans were drawn up by Fairbairn architects, who were the heritage architects before we got involved. But they had found documentation sufficiently to have drawn what was here, and also they came and they measured up what was still in pretty much a good state. The only reason why they knew about the original building being from 1777 and the renovation from 1787 was that there was documentation as to what was there and what wasn't. The corrugated iron renovation did away with that, with the opening, which is now a flat slab. We've only introduced the flat slab at this point. It was an open courtyard in 1777. Oh, you mean the veranda? Oh, yeah, the veranda. The veranda's corrugated iron, and that was around in the first alteration in 1787. It wasn't around before.
So that was documentation?
Yes, that was documentation, yeah. So they found that. And I think there was still some evidence of that still, there were broken down columns, and it was in a really bad state of disrepair. Oh. Yes, so there was evidence of it here when we started the renovation. The passage I didn't know about at all until I started researching for this talk, and it was mentioned there. And I hadn't seen any plans that showed that it was in there. So that was an interesting one that revealed itself now.
So the passage on the other side was probably a later addition?
No, that was that. It was. We found evidence that stated that there were passages on both sides. On both this side, and remember they were almost two separate buildings, just with a courtyard in between. So that passage is original. There should have been a passage here, which was taken out. But I'm pleased it was, otherwise we wouldn't all be seated in this room. Sorry?
How much archaeological excavation have you done in this? Did you do before you actually started doing the work? Did you find, were there any artifacts that came up? Did anything come up?
So all that excavation was done at the time when the Fairbairn architects were doing the heritage stuff. But some things did appear, and there wasn't anything of real significance. They found a few bones, and we thought, oh hell, we're going to have to stop construction. but they were old cow bones. We thought they were human. They were old cow bones. We did find some shell middens. We found a shell midden on this side here. And the archaeologists that came to look said, look, it's a midden that's been used fairly recently, as is the case with many, many sites along this entire coast, all the way down to the Transkei, where or up to the Transkei actually, where I've seen evidence of these shell middens too. But we never found anything that was significantly older than, you know, the stuff that we were looking at. But it would have been interesting to have found some nice stuff, you know, like pottery or something, but we didn't. Yep.
Yeah, I'm quite interested in the facade of the chapel or school as it became, because of the overlapping wooden
Yes.
slats. It's not something that's common in 18th and 19th. Is there any explanation for that issue?
We got a lot of our information from the Fagans, and I questioned it too, because I said, well, it's been converted into a church, it's been converted into school. Where does this come from? And he said it was how it was. The earliest evidence that they found was that was how it was when it was a barn and or stables. And I have no idea. I have no further insight into why. I asked the question myself, and that was, I don't know. I mean, there was a lot of buildings that were built solely of wood in Plet as well. I mean, the first church of St. Peter's was a wooden structure up at the top that was blown away before it became a stone building. So there was a lot of timber construction. I found it strange too. I think your question is a very valid one, because it was a mixture of brickwork and that timber cladding, and only on the one facade. Yes?
Why was it called the Old Rectory when you told us the history gave us it was used mainly as a garrison?
That was just me not going into too much detail, but it was used for the church from around 1887, or was it 69? Thank you. So it was used for the church almost exclusively from that time on. And there were church services held in the little building over here too, starting in 1887. So it was known as the Rectory, not the Old Rectory. It kept its name all the way through from that point. Yes.
It was bought by the church.
Yes.
And it was used as a rectory, which is the place where the rector stays.
Yes.
It became the Old Rectory.
Yes. Oh, yes. Thank you. Yes, of course. But it was used by the church from that point, and until it was bought by I believe the Crawford Brunts.
There was also a
Thank you.
woodshed, and the woodshed was used by the Dutch East India Company.
Yes.
There was a school. The school was run by Lee Dunn's grandfather or father. Grandfather must have been Lee. Grandfather. He was the principal of the school here, just where the building of
The spa building.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's got a great history from long, long, long ago, and it was great, yes, Lee.
Ben, yeah. So I actually wanted to help her out of the deep end, but then Rodney...
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Rodney.
So the reason why it's called the Old Rectory is because all of this has been the property of the St. Peter's Anglican Church. All of this has been Anglican Church property. So yes, where the spa is, that was the original little church, which eventually when they erected the church and this was the rectory,
Yes.
then the spa was then a school where my grandfather taught, and it was called the St. Peter's Mission School. So all of this has been Anglican Church property until Betty Crawford Brunt bought it from the Anglican Church
Yes.
and changed it into a home. He has been bungalows. It was a private house, and afterwards there's been what's the word I'm looking for? There's been accommodation. So until the people bought it over, who changed it into the boutique hotel. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Was there any state funding in the rehabilitation of the building, or was it all done privately?
It was all done privately.
So there's no connection with the wood store across the road and this?
There is. They were built at the same time, and the Dutch East India Company built that at the same time as us. And they are linked. That is a historical monument. It was given historical monument status long ago in 1964.
The timber shed was built in 1786 for the storage of wood for building the fort in Cape Town, and the wood was all chopped down from the trees here in Iceland and then shipped by ship,
By boat, yeah.
on sea from the timber store, and it's still there. The wood is built into the old fort in Cape Town.
Dael,
Yes.
did you find any evidence of the spring when you were doing the restoration?
We did. There was quite a lot of water that was coming, not so much that it would affect the buildings, but that came in through this fig area and then went through underground, because we found when we dug underneath the block C to put in the storage and the laundries and everything else, we found it incredibly wet. So it is still there, but it's a lot deeper than I believe it was in the past. It was there.
Because they mentioned that in the Council of 17, the Dutch East India Company, when they built this building.
Okay.
They mentioned the spring, and that's one of the reasons why they put the garrison here.
Okay. I never came across that information. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
And I suppose that's why the notebook.
Yes, absolutely. That's probably why it survived this long, because its roots are nice and deep and it's being fed from that spring. Thank you. Yeah.
Can you give us some comparison between the structure here, which predates the timber shed now by 7 years or so? Are these walls the same construction method? And do you have any information about the origin of the stone? Was it quarried on site? Is it the typical kind of stone that one would find on the hill behind the timber shed?
I can't answer you with certainty, but my records show that the shed was built in 1777, but renovated in 1787. So I'm not sure. Our records or certainly that I saw, and we weren't involved with that intimately, so I can't really speak too much about that. But it's similar stone. I can't tell you where it comes from, if it is from the site that's close by. But it would be interesting to do that analysis.
I think it must have come from the area.
I would have
because
thought.
Jacob Jerling, who built the timber store, timber shed, collected a lot of rocks from the area to build the timber shed.
Yeah, but it's not typical sandstone the way one sees it in the little Karoo.
Okay.
It's much more solid.
Yeah, it is more solid.
They were built as one contract. The BRC gave one contract to Jerling to build these two buildings and the wood store at the same time.
Yeah, they were built at the same time. But there was a renovation. Maybe that's where
Renovation.
what you're speaking of, Len.
Mike?
Yeah, I think from a geomorphological point of view, the Robert Peninsula itself is very old. It's actually part of the original Gondwana. So theoretically, the sandstone would have been more compact in that part of the world than elsewhere in the country. And I think if you look at the quarry that's on the beginning of the airport, on the left as you drive through, you'll probably theoretically find that the stone camp was there because it's close to the peninsula. But I think the method of construction is admirable because it's dry stone. Walling. And I think the real problem wasn't with the walls half as much as it they made the strange choice of having a flat roof on the timber store, and there's a big amount of water coming off the cliff behind. So your question, or the topic for me is very interesting, and it'd be great to get hard evidence to prove
It would,
theoretical
indeed.
parts.
Yeah, it would, indeed.
Okay.
Okay.
If you're
Thank
on
you.
our mail list, you'll get notice of all the different talks we have. The next talk is on the 21st of July, which will be at Beacon Isle, and it will be on passes and roads. And the road pot market is Thomas Bain, who was taught by his father, Andrew Geddes-Bain, and I will be the speaker. So come to the Beacon Isle 21st of July. After that, it will be in October, also at the Beacon Isle, and that will be Bruce Noble, who will be talking about all the creatures under the water, around the Beacon Isle, in the sea, the turtles, the dolphins, the sharks, and that will be the last talk of the year in October.
What about September?
Oh, sorry. September is Tybalt, and Tybalt will be is an architect, and it will be the speaker is Rodney Groskop, who is also an architect, and where are we having it? Is it at the
Beacon Island, I think.
Yes, it's also the Beacon Island. Yes, sorry. Yeah. Thanks, Rodney. Right, so please come and help yourself to